There, it looks like the Hangout is live.
Great.
So, hello everyone. David Cole here with the Hack Your Notebook project on Kickstarter. We are in the second interview of 6, maybe more, for the creators on the Hack Your Notebook project. The 4 co-authors for each of the 4 booklets, and then the 2 visual artists, an illustrator, Chamisa Kellogg, and the graphic designer, Carolina DeBartolo. And tonight, because it's 7:30 Pacific Standard Time here in San Francisco, we're talking with Chamisa. She's up in Portland. And the way we did this afternoon with Janine is the way we'll do it with Chamisa. We just begin a conversation of introducing each other, how we met, what the work is like, what it's like to work together, and then talk a little bit about where it's going. So Chamisa, hello. Do you want to introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself, and we'll just get into the conversation?
Sure. Hello. Yeah, my name is Chamisa. I am an illustrator and fine artist and sometimes graphic designer. And the past few years I've been working full-time on my own, freelancing and getting into the children's book world, and also working in the editorial region of illustration. Early on in my freelance career, I was hired by a woman named Natalie Freed to do some illustrations, and this is how I eventually made my way to be working on this project.
Yeah, great. Yeah, the Natalie connection. Natalie holds a lot of this together. Natalie and G. It started with G and then Natalie, and those relationships created a lot of interesting and exciting work. One of the things that I was thinking about as a collaborator with all these different people, spend a lot of time thinking about electronics and paper and engineers and code and technique with materials. And then it came time to think about the conversations we would have Chamisa. And, you know, I thought, wow, well, Chamisa's an illustrator. She's a visual artist. She's telling a story with us on this. And as we got into the questions, you began to explain in your background, Chamisa, what you did at RISD. Can you talk a little bit about that class you took? Because it turned out, I learned that the experience of physical computing was something you'd actually done before. And so you had a feel for the kind of work that we're doing well in advance of just thinking about it as a story to tell with drawings. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the paper element of it has always been an interest of mine. But the more physical computing, as you say, that interest for me started, I think, my junior year of college when I was at the Rhode Island School of Design. They had this really amazing class that was sort of a multidisciplinary class and drew from a lot of different majors. But it was called the Artist Machine, and basically, we worked with sort of very simple Arduino coding. And of course, when you get a bunch of artists in a room working on Arduino projects, you get all kinds of weird stuff happening. And it was really inspiring and really fun. And I didn't really take it anywhere for a few years after I graduated. And then a few years ago, started working on some shadow boxes and playing with light and bringing some LEDs into those projects a bit.
Nice. Hey, Chamisa, I'm going to share my screen, and tell me if you can see that PDF you shared with me.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you explain what we're looking at? That's be interesting for people to see.
Yeah, this first one is it's just a first layer, a piece of paper that I was eventually going to set into a wooden box. And I was just kind of playing with the natural sunlight in this one. But that was going to be kind of layered in with other cut paper and painted. And eventually an LED or several LEDs would be set in to kind of light it in different ways.
Nice.
The second one is an example of just the layered paper without any lighting. So if you scroll down to the second.
Yeah, I'm trying to get this to move here. I think I might be, there we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's just me sort of playing with different layers of thick watercolor paper that's been painted.
What's
And
the relief on that? So there's that's a piece of wood that's got a circle carved out of it, and it's almost like a shadow box. Yeah. So there's how many how
it's
many
about,
levels of relief are in that?
yeah, I would say that box is about 2 inches deep.
Uh-huh.
And there is, yeah, the actual artwork is set in maybe half an inch, and then it just has different layers
Mm.
within it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so just a lot of like cool X-Acto carving and playing with natural light and how that's affected.
Mm.
And then this third one is sort of a small detail of a larger box. You can see more in the next slide down. It's the same piece of art.
Oh, nice.
So in that one, I was playing a bit more with like how to cast shadows of things that you might not be seeing
Hmm.
besides, in the lighting. Uh,
Yeah.
so all of this kind of stemmed from that original class that I took. Um,
Nice.
and it all ties back into my, deep interest in creating worlds and imagined worlds and stories behind them.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So let me pick up on that idea of Natalie's stuff because we did these booklets 4 years ago initially, and we were working with individual artists in at the Academy of Art,
Mm-hmm.
and we were thinking about the way that we might do that um, as it relates to a different book with a different artist.
Mm-hmm.
But as we kind of got the series together, it was really clear that it would make sense for it to be really of a piece and it to be a single story with a single cast of characters and so on. And so we set about to figure out how we'd find another artist. And Natalie at that point had given us a lot of, have guided us through the Program Your Pages project.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of good things happen in and with and around Natalie. And so she had talked about this project, which may be of interest for a bunch of the people on the campaign, which are, Natalie's a crafts person, an engineer, and a computer scientist, and an artist, and she spends a lot of time around workspaces. And if you see Natalie with her lunch boxes of gear, she's got it all nicely organized. And so she pointed out that she had done this maker stickers project with you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was the first project that I did with her, and man, that must have been like 5 years ago now or something. And she approached me wanting some very simple line drawings of various elements that she had in her craft room and in her electronics storage, space.
Mhm.
And she wanted to, as you say, have a way of like really clearly organizing everything because a lot of those little components are so small.
Right.
Um, and so she commissioned me to do I don't even know how many little drawings it was, but at least 30 little drawings of different components, everything from pliers to tiny LED,
Hmm.
lighting or little sensors or anything like that. Uh,
Yeah. Just
yeah.
looking at this little box, you can see the resistors, you can see the circuit stickers, you can see what looks to be a battery clip holder.
So are you
Like,
sharing that right now?
yeah, I think so. I think I hope I am. That's the idea.
So
Um,
far, I can still only see mine, but maybe that's
oh,
just.
really? Let me try to turn. It says I'm sharing. Let's try to pull that out. Oh, you know what? It may have been. I think I may have. I'm going to stop and reshare because I think it was sharing the wrong application window.
Mm.
Let me try this. Now, do you see the?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So sorry about that. So this is Natalie's page on her website, and you can see see your drawings. And here's this wonderful collection. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know if Natalie's made and this. I haven't looked at this page for a while. I think she's going to release these. Maybe they're going to. It says maybe they'll be available to buy, or I'm not sure what. But it's a wonderful collection. And so here's a segue. Looking at these, the quality and the character of your drawing was really appealing to me because it was very tactile. You could see sort of the grain of the line, and even with these physical objects, they were very accessible. They were really readable. They were playful. They were quite specific. The detail was really lovely. And so we reached out, and that led us to the conversation about how to get started on this booklet project that we were doing. And it was a full series. I don't know if you can still see my screen now. Now I'm in our illustration meetings. Is that right? Can you see that?
Yeah, totally.
I guess the key here, you're looking at a blank Google Docs page, but the thing to notice for those of you who are watching is down in the left-hand corner, you're looking at 106 pages of collaboration. And I'm going to jump all the way to the top. But the graphics, this started more than a year ago now. We began this dialogue. And it began first, the whole premise was to work through a character sketch, talk about the kinds of things that were going to go into the booklets. So Chamisa, why don't I sort of move through this slowly while you talk about what it's meant for you to work with the Hack Your Notebook project, to be in conversation with me and with others about how to go about it.
Sure. Yeah.
A little bit about how this sort of figures in your role as a professional illustrator and artist, and what this has felt like to you. And we're getting ready to wrap it up now, but I'll go through this. I think people will get a sense for the amount of effort and the scope of what we've done here. So
yeah, definitely. Well, this has been a really interesting and different project for me. A lot of my work, as I said, is editorial, which is like very quick turnaround. A few sketches based on an article, and then you do a final piece of art, and then you're done. This has been much more of a journey, and such an amazing opportunity to contribute to something that's, reaching a whole different audience that I wouldn't normally reach, and also learn about something that I'm interested in, but am not an expert in by any means. So the way we kind of started, you can see here that we're starting with character design. We wanted to have, an equal amount of genders and a variety of different nationalities represented. And so we started with drawing some kids, and then we kind of worked through what each book would look like and what sort of story it would tell. So we start with a close-up of a kid's notebook, what they're working on, then maybe a group shot, like you can see here, of them working together in collaboration.
Yeah, these are the storyboards. The thing that for folks who have not seen the booklets, if you want to see a version of the first one that's been mocked up by Carolina, that includes the final drawings that you've done, Chamisa, it's on the Kickstarter. If you scroll down in the text, you can actually click through to a PDF where you can see what the mock-up looks like. But as we go through this, one of the main pieces of it artistically is not just the components, but these storyboards. Each booklet kind of takes the reader through an example project. In this case, for the first booklet with the LEDs and the circuit stickers, it's a night sky project. And so we began to sketch these out. And what you'll see as we go through this is that lovely image. When you shared this with me, I was really it was just great. This is that Renaissance night sky image from a tapestry, right? Which is really just a beautiful way to evoke how kids might think about that, making a project and then taking it out into the world, which is the way this work is meant to be. And then we get into stuff like this. So there's not only is there narrative and character, there's also sort of simple technical stuff which needs to be illustrated. These are some examples of templates we've used for work on paper, and each booklet, of course, has circuit traces.
Yeah,
and
it's been a really satisfying project for me in that way too, because I am in some ways very technical the way I work, and so it's been nice to have some more very specific drawings within that, but still have a lot of freedom to create characters and create different kinds of scenes with the kids.
One thing that's interesting here is we're trying in each case to introduce sort of some elements of the project. I think we got this far right here with the first page, the first storyboard was sort of a blank notebook. I think we go down further, and this is actually an interesting combo to go from here down to here. You'll notice that we're filling this in, and here we have content, which is the design challenge #1. And if you're doing anything with paper circuitry, of course, the key is to be able to fold your copper tape. So a lot of attention has gone into thinking about the content and the information in the visual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you've been really patient with us as we sort out how to go about cramming this information in a way that works onto the onto the page, because there's a lot of blocking here. There's not a lot of real estate. It's kind of fixed in terms of what the space is on these little pages.
Right, right. I'm gonna sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me all right, David?
Yeah. Yep. Can hear you fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here are some of G's drawings. Excuse me, some drawings of G's circuit
Can you
stickers.
hear me all right?
Yep. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, are you still there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna put my headphones in because people in my house were being loud, but I guess it's not working.
Oh, I know the feeling. The people in my house were being loud too. You're still there. Yeah, I'm going to scroll through and stop it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scroll through a few images and I'll just stop and you can comment on the image as the artist.
Sure.
Because, you know, we're only at page 12 of 106, which, you know, speaks to it. So if you think about what each booklet entails, it involves technical drawings like this. It involves sort of what I'd say, well, there's storyboards, and then there are, I guess, what I would call set pieces, where we need to get the cover graphic right, the sort of incidental pieces. Here's a piece of final art you can see, and we go through this. And there's every artist has a sort of trademark frontispiece image. This is a G Cheese image. This is a craft project she's got. That's the facing page for her quote. And then we get into there's a photograph. You redid one of our original designs, and you did that.
Oh, David, can you share your screen with me again?
Oh, so sorry. You're just looking at me talk. Let me try that again. Share my screen. It's share.
There we go. Perfect.
And I go here, and I go here. Yeah. Yeah, so can you see that now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's the finished kind of classroom present section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as we go through this, now we get into an interesting exercise where we wanted to modify our engineering drawings. I talked about this a little bit with Janine. It was Janine's idea to update our terms. Or originally we had concept, collaborate, present, and connect. We modified that to reflect a more articulated design cycle that's based on the learning spiral that you see here, that you've read about in all your engineering classes. But the one that comes out of Lifelong Kindergarten and Mitch Resnick's group with a spiral was the one that really animated us a lot and got us thinking about this. And we went through a bunch of iterations, and you can see where this is headed here. Spiral shows up here, and then more expressions of the spiral, and then finally we hit on this idea of the Fibonacci spiral and the golden ratio, and that ultimately turned into this. And then we handed this graphic off to Carolina, who treated it as a kind of a logotype, and it's what you see in the booklet. So we iterated quite a way to get through this, and you were great, Chamisa, to help us work through the concept.
Exercise, for sure.
Yeah, so you can see here's some of the graphics that we're using to get ourselves motivated. And these are the notes we used, and here's an image that became a graphic for the booklet. You can see it here. This is also a piece of the puzzle that's kind of instructive because, let's see if I can get it. Code goes here, right? Yeah, so behind the scenes, talking with Natalie and with Janine about what Arduino code will go on the screen, because the code that goes on the screen is the code that people will use to create the projects in their booklets. So there was a lot of, I don't know what the word is, transposition going on, so to speak, to get things going. And you can see we're creating the detail. I've always loved these. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to do these technical drawings?
Yeah, this was actually really fun because I was able to actually get some little components from David. He mailed some to me, and I was able to kind of play with them and see what they felt like in my hands and what they actually looked like. And yeah, they're all, all of these little pieces are also delicate and detailed. So it was really important to be able to see them, physically. Yeah, and then just these are initial sketches. And then do we have some, eventually we have some examples of them.
Yeah. So these were pictures of the actual components in notebooks. And then here we get to, this is a very strong image. The microcontroller, the soldering, little blobs of solder, positive and negative, the circuit sticker with a lot of good detail. Yeah, here we are working out sort of the layout of it. So you can see that, and here's one of the finals. Natalie and I had both a strong reaction to the angle. We asked you to make it square.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, and here's the finished drawing, waiting for the code that will go in. So the hope here is for people who are watching this is to get a feel for the way that we compiled this stuff, the way the visual style got developed.
Yeah.
And then we start to go into, oh yeah, and here's an example of sort of the sketch that Natalie provided. Well, there's the code which showed up, and here's sort of the scene that was imagined, the robot chat, where the lights actually articulate through kind of a Morse code language with light that lets the robot speak back and forth, and that's something that the kids are programming. And this was a little mock-up that Natalie shared to inform the blocking and the layout for a storyboard.
Yeah.
This is a lovely image of just a screen. And we use that screen here when the books get printed. We're dropping in the actual code that people are using. And again, yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about the notebooks? We were very intentional about how we use notebooks from book to book.
Yeah, I think, well, we talked a lot about how a kid's notebook is very personalized. I know mine certainly were when I was in school. They were, covered in different notes and notes back and forth with friends or doodles or drawings, whatever. And so we wanted to make sure that each of the 4 booklets that Next Math is producing is kind of indicative of a different kid's personality. So I think this is from the second one?
Yeah. Actually, this is book number 3, but I think it was the second one we did. So this is Program Your Pages. Yeah, this one is, yeah, the first one was sort of a typical composition book. This one's a spiral bound.
Yeah.
So if you're paying attention to the detail, every book has a different type of notebook. Yeah, and here's the final for that. And there were some more iterations there. I'm going to jump down a little bit to, here's this on the receiving end of this artwork, when you get these things, when one gets this stuff and we get these finished illustrations from you, it was always really just wonderful to have the level of detail pop off the page. And this one is a very beautiful, strong image. I really like this. Kind of feel like if we get around to it, we would make these into T-shirts or something. I think it'd be a really fun series. As we got into, yeah, this is a very busy screen, very busy detail here. The rhythm of the light is the little worksheet. If you've seen the Kickstarter video, you'll notice that's all kind of a sped up stop motion or time lapse, rather. But the rhythm of the light is the actual worksheet that's included to demarcate and mark out your blink sequence. Finished components.
Yeah, it's cool to look back at all of this and see you kind of hopping around from book to book now and then. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, here's the last page for the final design. So it's been really wonderful. Here's the layout for that little sketch we saw with Natalie. So I think we're looking here from the sketch to the final, right? And this one is a typical sort of science fair. 2 girls on a team, mother's there. This is very much about a kid's world in middle school, what we were trying to create.
Yeah.
Now we get into the servo stuff. So here's some sketches. The servos have a lot of very articulated pieces, and there were a lot of components here. Yeah, there you are. Do you want to talk a little bit about, a lot of it is sizing and messing around actually in the booklets themselves. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is another fun part for me where I got to play with, the physical components, just playing with the copper tape and how that circuit would fit in and how the little pop-up panda would work. Yeah, and then I think we ended up redesigning the little panda.
Yeah.
And just making sure that we had the best organization of that circuit.
Yeah, I remember that because we wanted to actually we moved this because we didn't want that the height of the circuit to be that close to the spine of the book.
Right. Exactly.
So we were test driving our way through this here. Yeah, and they're starting to get maneuvered around. You can see the little, when people get their booklets, they're going to receive sort of cut-outable templates that look like this, so they can know just where to place things. And then there's this lovely little, because these heads come off, of course, and this is a little pocket that will be on the inside of the book for where to place the ears.
Yeah.
And all of this is responding to Janine Huffman's prototyping that she was doing. And so we were using these as visual references.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my notebook from when we really first did it there. And there's Janine's sort of her prototype page. All these things are going to be shared as PDFs for people who get the books. And so you can see where all this comes from. This exploded view is really lovely. It's just great. And here's another one. So then we're going to jump down to the last booklet. Now, this is an interesting exercise because as we were going through, now we're talking about book 4, which was the idea of the pop-up. We have the pop-up idea, and then we also have book 4, which includes the servo. And so we began to try to create, we wanted to create this as final booklet servo page 1. Let's see, I think I'm catching up here. Oh, there's the panda template. The exploded view final. This lovely drawing, which is the facing page for the template with all the components. And there's the final. Yeah, so here we are. This last project, and I just want to mention it because if you think of booklets going from 1 to 4, they increase in complexity in terms of their components and their technique, from simple basic paper circuit to pretty familiar use of pop-up and paper, to sort of a level up where you learn to program a microcontroller through blinking. And then the 4th one where you include motion and the 3-dimensional component of something articulating around an armature in space, and also having the light. And so we're looking at kids who are now working with iPads and computers. They're figuring out their idea here, and here's the final. So we start to see a more complex collection of gear, right, that's showing up. And notably, there's another type of notebook. I want to get to the storyboard. Oh, here we go. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. I'll move through this. Chamisa, can you describe a little bit of what we went through here as we were working out the pop-up and working out this idea for this storyboard?
Yeah, so this was the imagined project that these kids were working on in the book was a sustainability project talking about cycling within a city and using the servo hardware and is in the project to create motion that was relevant to what they were talking about. So we kind of used Portland as a reference for the visuals, and did a map of biking and bridges and other public transit. And so this image, this sketch here, is of the kids kind of planning out like what do we want to show here, and what can our servo be used for to show sustainability within the city.
Right.
So we kind of had the light rail being moved back and forth by a servo, and then we also, up in the left corner, you can kind of see that we have this spinning disc that's showing the sun and the moon rotating. And maybe, David, you can talk a little bit more about how the Imagine project would link
yeah,
weather.
right. Yeah, I should also say that, Chamisa, you live in Portland, so everything is about personalizing and creating a context for your work. And so we thought, well, And we also wanted to create sort of a cityscape that had some relief in it. And of course, Portland is full of hills and bridges, and it just made a lot of sense. So anyone who's from the Northwest and knows Portland will find things in these illustrations that resonate or look familiar. What we wanted to do, and you know, and here's I'll go through a couple more storyboards here as we make our way through this. You can see we were trying to get the blocking right to be able to point out what's essentially sort of an enlarged pop-up with a bunch of componentry in it for some illumination, for some manual pull tabs, some sort of mechanical actions with paper, and also some servo action here. And then we got into another little project, which we can talk about. This was a little, well, here's a second one for some, we'll get to that. We were mixing things up. This is the art card project that people are going to be supporting. We'll come back to that. I want to jump up to the storyboard, and here we are. Here's the final storyboard. What was interesting about this project number 4, and I want to share this, and we'll be talking more about it as the campaign moves forward, is that Hack Your Notebook is a springboard for a thing called Open Data, Open Minds. And we prototyped that with Natalie early on, where we're pulling internet signal onto paper. And so this sustainability project with Portland is really the springboard for that. The idea that once kids design this kind of visualization, it's completely doable and quite feasible to think that they could pull in live data into their projects. So as you all in Kickstarter receive your booklets, we hope about that time we're going to be able to share with you another project which will be allowing us to connect these booklets to the web and bring in information from the communities where you live. For example, AQI, Air Quality Index. Searching by zip code and being able to pull that into your paper project with something as simple as a bar chart or a visualization. So we're trying to think of this as a sequence. And you can see that, you know, we're putting these things together through kind of a review process where kids are looking at each other's projects, all in preparation for a kind of showcase. So this is a collection. I'm going to jump out of the screen share now, Chamisa. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming next, and then I'll jump back into it. Now we're into the time warp here with all the, there we are. Let's see if I come back to life. There I am. So thanks for that tour. That was great. Let's talk a little bit about the poster. I'll jump out to it in a moment, but we wanted to create an image that would summarize the project and put all of them together in one place. And the poster sort of cues up another conversation we're going to have, and we'll make another announcement about postcards. But with that in mind, let me go grab that poster image, and I'll let you talk about that. Application window. So I want to get, I think I want that. And preview window. Color poster. There we go. Can you see the poster now?
Oh no, we're back to the light boxes.
Oh, we're back to the light boxes. Let me get this back here. Thanks for the direction. Share, applicate entire screen. Do that. What do you see now?
There we go.
All right. So technical detail on power. So this was an interesting conversation and a thing to develop. You and I really worked this out together. We wanted to create a culminating image that would put all the projects in one place. Yeah. So let's take turns talking about this a little bit.
Yeah. So after having done the various storyboarding throughout the 4 books, we wanted to have something that sort of showed this imagined world of all the kids presenting their projects and working together on them. And so these sort of, one of the first things that came to our minds was a classroom, and just sort of showing these kids in alternative learning environment, not necessarily desks all in a row, but having different workspaces for different kinds of projects. You have a little soldering table over there on the left side. And on the right-hand side in the top, you can see the kids showing off their night sky project. And we brought the Fibonacci spiral back in on the whiteboard, talking about the project cycle. So it's kind of like there's a lot of little treasure hunt kind of things in this image. You can kind of look at it for a long time and find a bunch of different things.
Yeah. One of the things that we used to talk about was the whole idea of a Richard Scarry picture, right? That that the photos or the illustrations are very, very warm and also very busy in a playful way. And that sort of, there's an energy in a classroom that feels like that. To your point about the sort of the open plan, so to speak, we looked at pictures of classrooms in Albemarle County, West Virginia, where Pam Moran runs the school district with Ira Sokol. There are some really great images of what they're doing with the physical plant in their county and in their district. There's also images. We borrowed some photographs for reference from Finnish classrooms. We just wanted to make sure that we were thinking about the way that this work really happens in classrooms. So you end up with kids parked and reading in comfortable places, doing their thing in their own part of the room. Stuff is around, it's a workspace. And also, we made up the idea that this was a science and storytelling open house. And those two disciplines and ways of thinking about the world are what this project is about. It's very much about science and storytelling and thinking about the imagined world, and also a world that's got physical laws and is governed by certain sort of scientific principles, and how you blend the two and how you interpret them. The goal with this work at large is to bring the process of making and constructing and building systems down into people's hands, down into children's hands early on, so that kids and teachers can play with these materials and get comfortable with them early on. The materials are accessible enough, the interfaces, whether it's the software interfaces or the breakout interfaces on the components, are very flexible. You've got incredible componentry like the Makey-Makeys, like the Chibi Chip, the Microbit, Scratch, Arduino, and then the centuries of familiarity we have with craft materials and artistic expression and storytelling. So this is really what we've been talking about. I'm going to stop sharing now and come back here. Chamisa, last but not least, this is kicking off the idea that we're going to be doing some postcards, right? The next thing we want to do is thinking about the book series. We're going to be putting together a collection of postcards as part of the campaign. With the 5. We're going to pick an image from each of the booklets and then add that poster image you guys have just seen. Yeah, that's the plan.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chamisa, for spending time in this format.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And I think once we publish this, maybe we'll come back and reconnect on the postcards. Also, we're going to be formatting and printing out the art cards, and we'll probably be doing a little time lapse on assembling those. So now that I've figured out how to get from Google Hangouts to Hangouts on Air to YouTube Live, and realize at a moment's notice we can push a button and be on air, maybe we can find each other and get back on and talk some more about that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Good. So thanks again. I'm going to stop the presentation or the broadcast now, and we'll post it up and we'll keep the conversation going. Great. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.